match one of the Vintage Super League. Hello and welcome. It's time for our first match of the day, and it pits German juggernaut Kai Budde, who said, "Shops, what Lodestone Golem? You still get one Lodestone Golem. This deck still looks great to me." He's running a stacks deck, smoke shop based, very disruptive Mishra's Workshop deck. Only got one Lodestone Golem, but if people don't take this deck seriously, I mean, he thinks, and I agree with him for whatever it's worth, that this can still be a tier 1 deck. Meanwhile, Brian Kelly, we got to see him play a little bit last week with his Dark Mentor deck. I called it Esper Mentor here. It is splashing. It's a pretty heavy black splash for Dark Confidant and Yawgmoth's Will into Tendrils Kill. Looks, though, like Kai has won the die roll, and here comes turn 1 Thorn of Amethyst.
Even if people do take Shops seriously, Workshops has a lot of tools available to it as an archetype, and I think it's still a contender. When I was preparing for this, I definitely considered it as still a tier 1 deck. And he doesn't have Lodestone Golem in his hand, but you know what? There are a lot of games where even with 4 in the deck, you don't have it in your opening hand. And you can still take games just by playing lock pieces and other threats.
I agree. Brian pitched Flusterstorm to his Force of Will so he can hold on to Taxing Pro. It makes sense. I mean, he knows what he's up against.
I don't think he's going to miss a Flusterstorm.
Yeah, not in this matchup, that's for sure. Just going to cycle through the probe, see what he's up against on future turns. Kind of not that much. He's also set up where he can go Misty Mox Emerald into Merchant Scroll. I'm guessing you just get an Ancestral here and try to load up. He could lose both his mana,
that's the best play.
He can get
if
Wasteland
Brian can land that early Mentor, then he should have a pretty easy time of it. If it helps him combat Smokestack, it helps him... Mentor is going to outclass most of the creatures that Kai is going to bring to the table.
How much mana is Brian going to have next turn, though, right? Kai can go Wasteland and revoke your Mox.
Yeah, I think the play might... If he's dead set on trying to land a Mentor, I would just play the Misty Rainforest and pass. It makes you Wasteland-proof.
Basic
I would
Island
probably
also
play the Mox as well. But he knows he has Revoker, so... I think that I would play Misty and just pass, and then you have Tundra next turn to play Mentor.
I kind of like Basic Island to get the Ancestral. You'll have the Island to resolve the Ancestral next turn. It's an interesting fork in the road, though. He definitely had a lot of information. It was not exactly great news. Oh, wow, Ensnaring Bridge?
Yep.
Wow. Ensnaring Bridge he's going to turn Brian into a bad storm deck if he lands that Ensnaring Bridge.
Sure, yeah, that's the big tool he's got in the main deck, which I think is definitely a nod to not losing a very fast game to Mentor. What's interesting, though, is he wasn't playing four Bazaar Baghdad. He's only playing 2 Bazaar Baghdad main deck. And usually you see this alongside Ubamask.
Right.
And Kai's not playing Ubamask. He's just on that Bazaar and Ensnaring Bridge plan.
Oh, geez. Steel Sabotage could bust that up pretty good at some point.
He does. I think that's the only one he's got. So
the one main deck Steel Sabotage?
A timely draw for the one main deck Steel Sabotage.
I mean, I think Brian's play here is just Ancestral and see what happens, though, right?
Sure. Because lots of great things could happen. I mean, there's no reason to play Library.
Huh. He's not gonna. Now, the reason that Ancestral might have been since main phase is in order to use his land drop, but knowing there's a Wasteland over there, if he slow rolls this land drop, he can actually draw a card off Library by playing it this way, right? He'll Ancestral up to 7, draw step up to 8, play the Library. He gets a free card out of it this way.
Yeah, and I don't think Kai is going to play anything that he's going to really need to Steel Sabotage. The Ensnaring Bridge, he can always bounce the turn he tries to kill him. The Smokestack isn't going to do anything right away anyway. So, if he's trying to go for a quick kill...
Well, here is the Smokestack. What do you think, Brian? Is this worth using your Steel Sabotage and not casting Ancestral Recall? Brian does not know about the Ensnaring Bridge. That was not there when he played that Gitaxian Probe a couple turns ago.
Oh, that's a very good point. I'm surprised he didn't choose to respond with Ancestral Recall.
I mean, look, it's a lot of value. I'll respond in case you hit the Force of Will. Yeah, maybe. Steel Sabotage gives him... I think he's just all in on this. I want to draw a card off Library before I lose it to the Wasteland plan.
I mean, Library of Alexandria is a great card. Never going to be upset about that.
Sapphire's a nice draw. Still does not have access to either white or black mana. Bizarre.
Yeah, I think holding the Misty Rainforest would have worked out a little better for him.
The guy did resolve an Ancestral, and effectively an Ancestral for 4, given this library.
Sure.
Okay, he's going to Preordain. That looks like a fetch land.
Yeah, it looks like a Polluted Delta.
Flooded Terrain and Polluted Delta, so
2 fetch lands, which he's not upset to see. That'll give him access to both white and black mana.
There's no scrub land in his deck, right? Of course. I mean, it's a Gush mana base. Of course there's not, but it's kind of funny that he might be tempted by scrub land.
Nope, just a Tundra and Underground Sea. I think the right play here is not Library. I think you go to get Mentor on the table.
Well, the Emerald is shut off by the Revoker, so this is Confidant, not Mentor.
Okay.
Or it's nothing. What? Wow, it's Steel Sabotage.
That is a line that, let's see how it works out for him.
I mean, I guess he did have to choose Mentor or Confidant. Maybe did he top with the 2 fetch lands? Does he not want to crack fetch land until he draws the other colored mana off the top of his deck?
Gotcha.
I didn't see if he topped.
Yeah, he
might have.
But if he put both on top, then he's able to just play Library and draw the other one.
But then it takes him 2 turns to deploy them? I don't know.
He has the time. Kai is not putting any sort of real pressure on him, and Brian's been able to develop his mana a reasonable amount. Like, if I had to guess who's going to win this game right now, I would probably say Brian.
Interesting.
I just think Mentor is that strong. He's going to lose a permanent to Smokestack, but that permanent is going to be Mox Emerald.
Yeah.
Which isn't doing him any good anyway.
I don't think this Thorn screws up his plans too much. The Mentor is still 3 mana play. He can still play Mentor next turn. I guess he loses the ability to respond with anything. Sure, and again, he doesn't know about that Ensnaring Bridge, so
right.
Steel Sabotage makes a lot of sense from Brian's point of view. I do think, though, that seeing that Ensnaring Bridge, it is now going to be Kai's plan.
Yeah, that should give him just enough of an edge, and he's down to basically no cards in hand by the time it would matter.
Yeah. It's weird. I mean, Kai's also got a Smokestack going, so it's not like he's going to lock the game forever with an Ensnaring Bridge.
True. But remember, Brian also doesn't need to kill him by attacking.
Right. Brian's splash includes a Tendrils of Agony and a Yawgmoth's Will. What a strange game.
And that's what we get in Vintage.
I like it. I think this is new Vintage too, right? This is, the Workshop deck having a little bit of its power level trimmed off the top versus, one of the flavors of Mentor, but there's still, right now I feel like there's multiple flavors of Mentor. There's multiple flavors of stacks. Life is just kind of interesting.
Well, like you said, I think you said there were 11 out of 12 decks.
Yeah. I counted as 11 different decks brought to the table by the 12 players in this play-in tournament. There are 3 decks that include Monastery Mentor, but this Brian Kelly Dark Mentor deck I think is just very distinct from the more traditional Jeskai flavored ones that Tom and then the other Andy brought. And
Well,
then
I
the
definitely
top
like
decks, I think,
seeing,
are very different, right? Bob's on Dark Depths, Kai's on Smokestacks.
Yep. I definitely like seeing Tendrils of Agony in in multiple decks. Had I known this was an option and had I considered it, you may have seen me play this instead of Dragon.
Oh, Dragon's awesome.
Oh, it is. There's no doubt. But I'm a big fan of cards that have that storm mechanic.
It's pretty powerful. All right, here's the Monastery Mentor. Ryan also does have a Gush ready to save that Tundra from Wasteland. He's got a Polluted Delta, which can get him the black mana for Dark Confidant. Things would be in great shape for Brian to kill with Mentor in just a couple of turns if it wasn't for Ensnaring Bridge.
Sure.
The presence of Ensnaring Bridge means I don't know what's going to happen. Like, that Mentor would clearly outrace the Smokestack.
Right. It would. The Mentor would outrace the Smokestack. And, you know, it's interesting. If he gets the Ensnaring Bridge down, Brian's only option, if he's going to remove it, is to Yawgmoth's Will to steal Sabotage. He does have one repeal, but it's not like he's playing Hurkyl's Recall. It's not like he's playing Rebuild or any of the classic answers that a lot of people use against stacks, at least not game one.
Yep. Now, how does Kai play the Smokestack? Do you think? I mean, it's not exactly going to grind Brian into oblivion while Brian has a Monastery Mentor. Like, I don't think it would be crazy for Kai to just let it go and just say, this is not a Smokestack game for me. I can't Smokestack lock a man with a Monastery Mentor and 4 cards in his hand.
Well, I don't think he should let it go just yet, because if Brian gushes, it's definitely going to impact how much he's able to play around that Smokestack. Like if he puts it to 2 and then plays the Ensnaring Bridge,
I mean, a lot of times
maybe he sacrifices Factory, maybe Revoker now that the Mox Emerald's gone.
I mean, a lot of times this deck will leave Smokestack on 1 and just sort of slowly grind you, right? Squeezing like an anaconda.
Right. No, I don't think that's
that is not going to work. I think you either have to
this
ramp
white
it.
Creature he's got. Yeah, Mentor will definitely trump that plan. So I don't think, and I'm sure Kai knows that.
So this debate is, either he sacks the Smokestack to itself and just gives up on that aspect of the game and goes all in on this Ensnaring Bridge, or he has to ramp it to 2 and try to implode the whole board. And he decides to let the Smokestack go. And I think that's what I would have done there, for whatever that's worth.
I don't know if I would have let it go one more turn, because I don't know how valuable that Revoker is right now. You know, it wouldn't have bothered me to let that go. But then again, you know, I'm not the best player in the world, and I'm not the reigning vintage champion or former world champion, so it's not a bad line for him to take. So we've got a Wormcoil Engine.
Yeah, he's only got 5 mana. He can drop the bridge and be on 1 card in hand with the ability to go to 0 with Via Bazaar.
I think playing the Ensnaring Bridge is the right play here. I don't think there's any... I mean, you shouldn't Bazaar. Bazaar just does you no good in this this scenario.
The little Wasteland dance is maybe what Kai's thinking about. Like, he doesn't know whether Brian has a Gush. I mean, both players see that there's a Wasteland in play and a tapped Tundra on the other side, so it's just this weird, like, do I just hope he doesn't have a Gush? Do I maybe want the mana? Yeah, so there's the Ensnaring Bridge. Monastery Mentor cannot attack. Nothing with power above 1 can attack. The Underground Sea came natural off the top.
That's not a bad card to see right there for Brian.
I mean, that Dark Confidant could kill him. There's few enough answers to Ensnaring Bridge in his deck. He could play Dark Confidant, you know, his way.
I would definitely play Dark Confidant in this position.
Yeah, I would too. I agree. I'm just saying it's not completely safe when there's an Ensnaring Bridge on the other side of the table.
The fact that you have 4 Gush And the fact that you have a couple cards up there that are 3 and 4 can chip away at your life total, especially when you're at 11.
Jeez,
now, Brian chose to gush right off the bat, so we see some excellent cards off the top.
By the way, he only has 3 gush.
Oh, really?
Yeah. No fast bond. I actually kind of agree with him. Gush without fast bond can clog your hand when you run 4. There's only 1 card in his entire list that's a 4 of.
And I assume that's the format-defining staple of Force of Will?
It is, in fact, Force of Will. Only 3 missteps. Only 2 mentors.
Well, he's got the Dark Confidants. He's got the Storm side of things.
Right.
He's not all in on Mentor like several other
he pluses the Jace. Looks at the top of Kai's library. That is interesting.
I guess he figures that's how he's going to win. Kai doesn't exactly have anything in play that Brian really cares about. So
crazy.
What he doesn't know is that to leave him a mana actually lets him cast Wormcoil Engine.
Whoa, Kai's going to bizarre here.
No.
Yeah, I saw the same line you did. He could have gone land, tap 6, Wormcoil.
And then he has no cards in hand.
But how's Wormcoil going to attack when he's got this Ensnaring Bridge, right?
Yeah, true.
Decided Wormcoil doesn't actually do him that much good. He wants a Thorn of Amethyst instead. Or wants whatever lock piece he can find.
Sure. Now I think Kai's plan is just dig for a Crucible, dig for another Smokestack, and just really try to slow things down.
What does Kai win with through the bridge?
My guess is that with a Smokestack on 1, if he has Crucible, eventually he'll just be able to sacrifice the bridge at a time of his choosing. And, once he gets rid of a board. But that's going to be tough with something like Jace and Mentor out there.
It takes a while. Yeah, he literally cannot win the game other than attacking for damage.
Right.
Like there's no Triskelion. Sometimes these decks will have like Triskelion and
no Barbarian Ring. He's not He's not running red.
No, he can't win the game through his own Ensnaring Bridge other than he can Smokestack lock, kill everything Brian has, then choose to let his bridge go.
And I think Brian is in a pretty good spot right now. I think he was right to Fate Seal with Jace.
He's going to keep doing it.
I mean, it really makes Kai find an answer. As like you said, no Triskelion, no easy way to get rid of Jace. He's got a couple turns to dig for an answer. Yeah, unfortunately for Kai, I think the game got away a little bit when Brian was able to resolve Mentor and able to develop his mana. I think the way that Kai had hoped to win this game is really just not let Brian in the game.
What has the Mentor done? The Mentor's done nothing. He resolved Ancestral Recall into Jace the Mind Sculptor. Is what he did.
Well, the Mentor has made that Smokestack plan useless.
That's fair. Okay, that's a totally good point. You're right. You're totally right.
He had the Smokestack in play. He had the plan of ready to start chipping away at his permanents, but these pesky monks.
That's a fair point. I like how Jace is friends with the Ensnaring Bridge. His ultimate can win the game, basically instantaneously.
Brian just churning out another creature. The prowess triggers, unfortunately, aren't going to hurt or help. But I think he'll cast Time Walk, get to use Jace some more, just accelerate that one more turn.
I'm impressed with the way Brian navigated this. I don't know that Kai did anything wrong. It just felt like The game was kind of hanging in the balance, and Brian did lots of things right. I also like the way he has not risked a Dark Confidant. That just isn't actually important.
Right. He doesn't need more cards. And if he's going to use Jace as his win condition, then he doesn't need to... he could use it to keep himself safe with Dark Confidant. You can put 2 lands back every turn. Even with 2 Dark Confidants in play, they're not going to do you any damage.
Fair.
But Ensnaring Bridge with that 1 repeal as an answer left, and the Steel Sabotage in the graveyard, he's pretty much content to say, all right, I've got the best Planeswalker in play. He's going to end the game. I'm going to hand the ball back to you and make you figure it out. He doesn't need to get tricky.
Time Walk is a cantrip +2 loyalty to Jace card here. Is that what it is?
I mean, it does great things.
Yes.
That extra attack step.
Double cantrip. We're on the library plan now.
Is that the first time he activated library this game?
He waited for Kai to use his Wasteland. Kai just said, as response to the Time Walk, Kai wasted that Underground Sea. He's trying to keep Brian pinched on mana, and Brian's like, great, Wasteland's finally gone. Coast seems to be clear for my library now. This is a big match, by the way. The winner of this match gets a pair of win-and-ins to join the league for the coming season.
There you go.
Yeah. 1 card in Kai's hand, so Kai needed to Bazaar as a response to the attack step, right?
One in beginning of combat. So I'm interested in this here. I don't think
Kai did not want to lose his Null Rod, I guess? Or he's trying. Kai figures that he's going to need to draw out of this, so he doesn't want to just be at 0 cards. He's not going to win long term. He's willing to take a little bit of damage here so that next turn he can Bazaar and actually get to keep a card.
Sure. I'm not sure what he would try to dig for in this situation.
I don't know what Kai's long-term plan is.
Right. I mean, I think he doesn't have the 5 or 6 turns that it would take to ramp up a smokestack, establish, a Crucible, waste effect. I think he's going through the motions just to see what he's able to find, but I don't think there's anything he can draw that's going to miraculously turn this around.
I think I agree with you. So maybe Kai did need to actually just implode the board with that smokestack.
Yeah, I think it would have given him a better chance, because the turn that Brian gushes, he's going to be much lower on permanence than he will be at any other point in the match.
Right.
And if you can either hamstring his mana enough there, or get rid of enough monks that's not sitting there across the table from you.
I mean, I don't think any of that helps when Brian Ancestral's into Jace.
No. Brian definitely drew the cards in his deck that he wanted to see. I don't think Kai saw the cards in the exact right order, which is sometimes a weak point of stacks. You're really stuck on your opening 7 plus the next 4 or 5 cards. There's not a whole lot of deck manipulation like there is in 90% of the rest of the format. Interesting. He's just letting him get another attack in. Now, if this was me, I would probably be sitting back with several blockers for Jace and just upping Jace, and then ultimating it.
I mean, that is what Brian's doing.
Well, you never know if I guess we know, Brian knows, we all know that he doesn't have Triskelion. I'm thinking
deck
from
lists are public.
The perspective of, he could have an out that would get rid of 1 or 2 blockers, but not 7 of them.
I mean, I think Kai figures it would take 2 instants to kill him there. Probably doesn't have 2 instants he can cast. So, yeah, Kai's preserving the selectivity he can get while he's still got cards with this Bazaar. It really feels like an Uba Mask is what Kai needs here. He doesn't have that half of the combo.
That is what's designed to be played with that Bazaar. And so that Bazaar gets used every turn to turn into 3 cards, but that's not how Kai built his deck, and it didn't work out for him. So now they're going to sideboard.
Yep. Who do you think sideboarding helps more here?
I think Brian's. If you look at Kai's sideboard, Kai doesn't have. I mean, he has access to Leyline of Sanctity, but I don't think that's the strongest thing in the world. Brian gets to bring in another Steel Sabotage. He gets to bring in Disenchant and Hurkyl's Recall. And if he wants, he gets to bring in Swords, which is helpful against Worm Coil Engine, the one of Lodestone.
It's not exactly a heavy anti-shop sideboard for Brian, but it's still better than what Kai's got, like you say.
Yeah, I think Brian's main deck versus Kai's main deck, Brian definitely has the advantage. And all he has to do is cut out the Flusterstorms, cut out the Mental Missteps, and bring in a couple of the sideboard cards to just, that Flusterstorm sat in his hand the whole game, didn't do anything. He didn't draw the second Force of Will to make it live, so to speak. Now it's going to be a Disenchant or a Hurkyl's Recall.
That does seem better. All right, what does Kai's draw do? It's an Ancient Tomb, no Workshop. It's a Bazaar. He does have a Crucible, but he doesn't have a Wasteland. Yeah, I mean, but he can get... I guess the Bazaar means he's not going to get locked under his own sphere because he's got the selectivity. And if he comes up with a Wasteland, he's got the Crucible.
Right. And the nice thing about Bazaar is that with Crucible, you can Bazaar and just discard lands, and it's like you didn't discard anything. You get to play them right out of the yard and get a little bit of incremental advantage there.
All right, so this looks like Kai's going to keep.
And Brian's hand is great. He has Steel Sabotage. He has Force of Will. He has a 2-mana cantrip.
I think
the only thing he's missing is a Mentor.
Yeah, he forces the Sphere, pitches the Time Walk. I think that was the worst of his blue cards. So expensive. 2 mana.
He doesn't have anything to really, really take advantage of that right here.
And now, out of fear of Wasteland, he's not going to preordain. He's just going to pass with a fetch land in play. Is my guess.
I think he might be able to do both. We might be. I don't know how valuable he thinks of that Lotus Petal. But
I like his line. The thing is, not doing the preordain means you get to have up Steel Sabotage for whatever the second thing is that Kai's going to play.
Sure.
Kai leads on Null Rod rather than Sphere, which makes sense, especially enemy Lotus Petal. Doesn't hit any of yours, and Brian is down that Lotus Petal now. Now, this seems like basic island preordain.
Definitely. And leave up one of the fetch lands in case it's necessary. Now, one of the cards was Polluted Delta.
Gush, I believe, was the other.
Yep.
Which he kept. And bottom of the Delta, keep the Gush. Kai still only has 2 mana.
I would probably be Bazaaring by now.
He just declined it for the first time. He could have end step tapped it.
Yeah.
I think he likes his hand a little more than that. All right. He drew one more card. Now he's going to main phase it.
I think with the second Crucible, that's not a card I'm upset about discarding.
Yeah.
What do you think he elects to discard here?
The Revoker doesn't do anything with Null Rod in play. The backup Crucible is merely a backup. I guess Metamorph is even more of a backup plan here. Wow, and discarded the Ancient Tomb.
That is not a line I would have guessed.
Well, he wants to make sure. I mean, I was thinking about, do you discard the backup Crucible? And I think he kept both of them because he wants to slog through whatever counterspells are over there, which does make sense to me.
Sure.
But yeah, he doesn't have that Ancient Tomb out of the yard until he resolves a Crucible, which he can't do until he keeps the land.
Right. I probably would have kept the second Ancient Tomb, 1 Crucible and 2 Spheres. It lets you play the Sphere. If it resolves, it lets you play the Crucible with the Sphere out.
Oh, by the way, Monastery Mentor off the top for Brian Kelly with a Gush ready to start pumping out monks.
That is a very happy card to see.
It is. Kai does draw his 3rd mana. Draws Mishra's Factory. I mean, I guess you have to play Crucible here, right? What's he going to play? Sphere? To, like, slow down the cantrips? Your opponent's got 3 lands at this point.
I mean, if he plays Crucible, Brian will respond with a Gush. He'll get the Monk.
Yeah.
But Crucible doesn't help Kai right now. It may help him a turn or 2 down the road.
Right, it lets him start getting value out of his graveyard while he's got this Bazaar. I mean, I think the Sphere is net negative for Kai.
Yeah, okay. I don't think he's going to play the Sphere here.
Okay, I like tapping Bazaar. I think Kai found a good. None of his options were all that good, so let's see if we can find some more.
Yeah, the great thing, he's just going to look for Ensnaring Bridge at this point. And it puts us right back in the same position he was in Game 1. Monastery Mentor is that good, folks. So I assume he's going to discard at least one of the 2 lands. I think he keeps the Workshop. What do you think?
I would keep only the Workshop for land. The Smokestack is the thing you have to make this decision about again. It's once again...
Is that the line he wants to stick with?
I mean, it's more or less thwarted by that enemy Mentor, right? You have to assume your opponent's got something in his hand.
Well, I think if he discards the Factory, discards one of the 2 Crucibles, and probably discards the Sphere, I would have kept the Smokestack and tried to
discarded the Smokestack.
Yeah. I think his best shot to win is maintain his board parity with Crucible and ramp up the Smokestack and try and make Brian keep up with sacking 2 things a turn where he only has to sack 1 thing a turn.
Kai kept 5 mana worth of artifacts and has 5 mana, but with this way the Sphere works, he can't use it to defend Crucible. He has to go Crucible first, cross his fingers, hope it resolves, then follow up with Sphere. I think Brian should Gush as a response and look for Force of Will blue card, but he says
there's nothing to be lost by gushing in response there.
Yeah.
Except for the extra mana on the next turn.
Right, but now surely he gushes here, right? Well, it's free? I mean, I guess he's down a mana next turn, so he can actually afford to gush in his main phase after tapping his lands for mana, and he actually turns out 1 mana profit next turn, so fair enough.
Sure.
It's a very patient man, Brian Kelly.
And it seems to be working out for him so far.
It does. Totally does.
And with Kai only at 12 life because of the Ancient Tomb, I think we're going to see this game end much quicker than people may expect.
That's true. Kai's got to find Ensnaring Bridge super fast.
Right.
And if
he doesn't draw it on his next turn,
he can't use the Bazaar to find it next turn because he'll only
gets
get 1
more turn, and then he'll be able to Bazaar and keep 1 card.
Does that even work though? He's going to take. Well, I guess he's only going to take 3 here. That gush turned up land. It will be hard for Brian. Brian will have to top deck something to kill him next turn. So Kai probably has a couple turns to find a bridge.
Yeah.
Mentor hits for 3. Kai falls to 9. Metamorph off the top of the deck. What does that do? Does that do anything?
I mean, it could be a mentor.
How good is Kai at triggering prowess?
Well, definitely not as good as Brian's deck. But I don't think he plays it. I think he waits and uses it as an extra card to be able to activate Bazaar and dig for ensnaring bridges is what he's looking for.
I agree. So does Kai, apparently. All right, Git Probe off the top. Does cost 1 because of the sphere. Would get Brian up to 5 power worth of attackers.
Well, we'll definitely see him play it.
That Source to Plowshares is a cheeky little card here in that it will deprive Kai of a Mishra's Factory that he might want to block with, and also pump the team for 2.
Swords is definitely a good card in this matchup. Better than Mental Misstep, better than Flusterstorm.
Oh yeah.
Which went right to the board. I don't think Brian needs to do anything especially crazy. He just needs to
land attack.
Keep attacking, yeah.
Yeah, this is an attack for 5. Could become 7 with a plow, but of course Kai will gain 2 life from the plow. Don't know if
what's
Kai
nice
wants
is
to
that the prowess will counteract the life gain.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, if Kai tries to get Factory involved in combat, he has to tap Ancient Tomb to do it.
Oh, that's a bad spot to be in.
And the Factory has Summoning Sickness. This can't be right. You just take 5 here. Like the Factory can't even tap itself to make itself a 3/3.
Yeah, I think Kai finds himself in a tough spot. I don't think he made any mistakes along the way.
No.
You know, nothing crazy. Just kind of how this matchup.
I talked to Kai a little bit about his deck selection for this tournament, and he was looking at vintage results, and he felt like people were really sort of gambling with their mana bases, and that he wanted to play something that could punish people for cheating on mana, for not respecting the possibility of a workshop deck. All right, Bazaar, can you find Ensnaring Bridge? No. Yeah, no Ensnaring Bridge, and Kai loses. He wound up talking to him, just finishing that thought about his deck. He was like, well, look, if Stacks is still a deck, I should like my chances, because he looked at the, last week as everybody kind of revealed their VSL deck one match at a time, and it was like, if my deck is real, then I've got decent matchups, but jury's still out on what the right way is to build a workshop deck nowadays.
Definitely.
So Brian Kelly advances to the win-in against Paul Rietzel. It'll either be Paul or Brian claiming a spot. That match will get played during next week's show. And the loser of that match can still get in. The loser of that match actually backs into a second win-in. So there you see the winner's bracket. Here's the loser's bracket. You see that Kai falls down into a match against Reed Duke. How's that for a feature match?
Oh, it's a tough one. I think Reed may have the advantage there as well.
Storm against Workshops is now advantage Storm?
I mean, I've played Storm a lot, and I think so is Reed. I think he knows it better than I do.
Now, that match is going to take place later today. I don't know if we have the schedule handy, the order in which we're going to be playing out these matches, but we have 6 matches on tap for today. Kai versus Reed will be one of them. Your match is actually next up, so you're going to be playing against Bob Maher.
That is true.
All All right. Well, I'm going to let you go get ready to play against Bob. We're going to send things to a commercial break. And I do want to shout out to our new sponsor. Legion Supplies has signed on to sponsor the Vintage Super League all season long. So you start to see their logo sort of creeping into our graphics. I guess I got to point this way. I'll get better at this. There we go. There's the little hat. And yeah, very happy to have those guys on board. So thanks to them. And stay tuned, guys. We'll be right back with round 2.